Hey guys, for today's episode, it's not going to be about comparing one gear to the other, but rather to show you behind the scenes as to how I capture some of my images. Today, I'm going to play with white balance in a more creative way, where I'm going to set the white balance in camera to tungsten so it reads everything else as blue. And to counter that, I'm going to put an orange gel to make it look better. So without further ado, here we go. Very nice. Now, Randy, look over your shoulder towards her. Nice. Look at him. We wrapped up over here. We're going to change the models to a different look, and we're going to move from location, and let's see how creative we get with those shots. We are in the new location, which is overlooking the city of New York from the east side, so we're technically in Queens, and we're going to use a one light setup only, just so that they can have a little bit of pop of light onto them. Other than that, I'm exposing for ambient light, and let's take it away. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was not anticipating doing this. I'm actually going to switch with the video camera lens, which is a 16-35 f2.8, because I want to showcase the drama behind it with the clouds and the city and the green. So let's see what we get out of this. Here we go. So we moved to another location where hopefully I can shoot some dramatic photos near the train tracks. So I don't advise you to do that. I will have 2 people looking out to make sure that there's no oncoming train. And we're going to shoot fast to get out of the way. And if that doesn't work, then we move somewhere else. But let's see what we get. 3, 4, 5. Hold that. Hold that. Love that. Stay right there, stay right there, stay right there. All right, guys, so that wraps up the last dramatic photo shoot for today. We're going to move into something more casual now with just available light. Let me know in the comment section below which look you like the most, whether it was the one with the 85, the 105, or the 16-35, and whether you like natural light or artificial light. As usual, if you like this video, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and hitting that bell notification. And until next time, see ya.
All right, everyone. Hello. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. And this episode is sponsored by Bachata Radio, where you can listen to this interview live in high quality. And tonight, people, we have a very, very special guest all the way from the New York area, Mr. Franklin Liranzo.
Woo!
Franklin, man, it's been so long. How have you been?
Life, as we know it, has been a roller coaster with this whole pandemic going on. But, all things considered, I am doing well. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing great as far as I can be. Healthy, have a job, loving life. And like I told you before, having this platform has enabled me to connect with artists like yourselves and really be able to celebrate your success. And honestly, I'm hoping that 2021 is definitely a better year.
Fingers crossed, my man. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. And like all of my episodes, I really focus on, of course, understanding what it took for you to get to where you are now, understanding your success, seeing all the accomplishments, but at the same time being able to appreciate the person as the human being. Because I really think a lot of times throughout our years, those points get lost. I think so many people just see Franklin Liranzo as the photographer, but I think it's so much more important to understand Franklin as the person.
Well, thank you, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm
Thank
so
you. I
nice.
want to be understood, you know?
Of course, of course. I mean, just understanding the man behind so many amazing portraits, the man behind some, let me see, dancers becoming competitive award winners. I mean, to be honest, you definitely need to be celebrated, understanding, especially over the years, what you've been able to accomplish. But also, too, tonight, definitely think it's going to be very interesting. People understanding really where Franklin was before doing photography, learning about your life, and actually helping people to gain a little bit more insight about yourself.
And also about you.
Of course, we're gonna definitely take it back. If people don't know, me and Frank can really go back. I would say we would say 08, 09 in a
Definitely.
about around 09 is for sure. So I mean, if people don't know, that's about 11 years. So yeah. You know,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was definitely I had maybe had a lot more hair. I was just yeah, you remember those times.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
No, 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 no. But definitely tonight it'll be interesting as well. During our talk tonight, we will be having live time comments coming in. For example, Mr. Mike Bello here saying, "Oh yeah, very hot, Franklin. The shots are great."
Well,
And
thank you. Thank you. Can I say, I'm aging like wine.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Franklin. So I mean, for me, I love every episode, every guest that I have to really take it all the way back from the beginning and kind of giving us a glimpse before dance, but really who is Franklin Liranzo?
I'm going to give you a quick wrap up. Franklin Liranzo is a Dominican born person who came to the United States in 1996 to stay here permanently. Obviously, went to junior high and high school. After that, I joined the U.S. Navy, was a paramedic, fell in love with photography while in service. And then I got out during the Big Depression that was affecting the United States. Couldn't find work, ended up going for an associate's degree in human services, followed by a bachelor's degree with a concentration of photography. And then right after that, it was a master's degree in digital photography. And consequently, at the same time that I started photography, I also began my journey as a dancer as well.
Man, and that's important. And something you said during your military time, and we've talked also privately. I think too, the love or the itch for photography was that around the time it came in for you.
I was deployed to Pakistan with the U.S. Navy and the Marine Corps for a humanitarian mission. I don't know if you guys know, but in 2005, there was a massive earthquake that
Mhm.
affected Pakistan and ended up killing over 90,000 people, and it was really bad. So we went there for medical purposes. I was a paramedic, and my job was to track how many patients we were receiving on a daily basis. And aside from that, there were multiple other jobs that other people were occupying, being that there were two guys who were responsible for photographing the deployment. And when I saw their images, I was completely blown away. And I loved the fact that they were capturing the entire deployment, for media and whatnot. And then I always kept that in the back of my head. And by the time I got out of the military, I went straight into photography.
Man, and that's amazing. Kind of those moments or the moment that you get it kind of like, oh man, this is something I love. Because me, myself, being in the military and the army, understanding with photography, those moments you capture, you can kind of look in that person's eyes and visualize, in a sense, try to understand what they're going through.
Yes.
So I definitely feel, especially with photography, it's very important that eye. Um, and now, kind of, and after your military, you said you kind of got into dance. So how did that begin?
Well, going back to being Dominican, culturally, we're always dancing. As kids, my mom was pulling me out to dance. We'll go to parties, my cousin's house, whatever. And I remember when I was here in the United States is when they first introduced us to sort of representing your country. So in junior high, I was dancing merengue with other Dominicans. And then in high school, I did that all 4 years. So dance has always been a part of my life. It's just that I've never actually studied it or trained in it from an early age. Um, when I was sent to Japan, I was there for almost 3 years. I found myself completely detached from my reality. I was no longer with my family, with my friends. I was in a different country with a different language under military structure. And my way to connect to my own roots was to go into dancing. So I would go to a place in Okinawa, Japan called Salsatina. And over there, we would dance the night away. And then when I was sent to Pakistan, Sundays was the only time that we had off, so to speak. And I remember that I started teaching whatever little I knew, which was nothing, by the way, to the people over there to sort of kill time and form a stronger camaraderie and just have a more positive outcome out of the deployment. So once I got out of the military, I found myself with a lot of time, and that's when I jumped into photography, and then I joined into a local studio here, which at the time was called Mambo Bravo. And long story short, here I am.
Man, and it's funny you say about that moment in the military in Japan, because I was told that same story by many other dancers, and I also, while I was in training, was asked if I wanted to get deployed to Japan because it was like there's a big dance community out there you can teach, and I'm like, is this kind of the thing for people with dancing? It's like they automatically want to send you to Japan for some reason, but realizing that scene out there is pretty popular for many, many years. And that's amazing of understanding the road that you took because everything happens, I believe, for a reason. So I think that moment of you getting that inkling, hey, maybe I should take a few classes in here and then kind of coming back to the States. And like you said, joining Mambo Bravo. And I believe that was in Queens. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Man, so coming back to the States, kind of getting reacclimated, because a lot of people don't understand. For many people I know that have deployed, coming back into civilian life is different. It's when you're away, people don't understand. Military life is totally different from civilian life. There are different guidelines, and I think it molds people different. I think it for many people in the military, we kind of have a one track of you get it done, get the mission done, and you keep moving forward. And I think to our patience and tolerance is different compared to people back home. But so, what was that experience like of finding Mambo Bravo and kind of getting into that dance life?
I'm glad you brought that up. I
Mhm,
think it's a very important topic, and it's very true. Transitioning from a superstructure system or organization into a more relaxed can sometimes create a little bit of backlash or some conflict between your friends and family.
mhm,
Um, but I always knew that in order for me to cope with the change, I needed to do something that was fulfilling to me. And obviously, dance has always been that for me. Um, so I knew that I wanted to take my dance somewhere. I didn't know where, but somewhere rather than what it was. And I remember I reached out to Ruby Espinosa, who was the owner of the studio, and she was super nice to me. And this was, um, people, this is embarrassing, but this is over MySpace.
oh, back in the days, I used
Yeah,
MySpace too.
no, we're not even talking Facebook yet, but I reached out to her through MySpace, and she was really nice, and I like that. And I think the very first month that I came back to New York from Japan, which was my last duty station, I signed up to the student team, and she took me under her wing, and she taught me so much, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So Ruby, if you ever watch this or if you're watching now, thank you so much.
Man, I definitely remember Ruby back in those days. I met her. So, a question now that I have, what was it like for you kind of attending your first social, seeing your first performances? Was it kind of an eye-opening experience for you?
Brother, let me tell you, I I was avoiding socials for the longest time ever. I went to one and I saw the level of dancing that everybody was putting out, and it was completely intimidating. And for the longest time, I would not go to a social by myself. I would go with my own friends from the studio, and we would dance with each other and nobody else. Which all I could do at the time was a crossbody lead with an inside turn, and we called it a night.
Ooh, 5 minutes, 6 minute songs sometimes that can get, yeah.
Yes. And then it didn't help that one time I went to Jimmy's social, and I somehow gathered the courage to ask this lady to dance, and she shot me down bad. So that took me back a couple of months, and then I went back to socials.
Okay. I mean, and I love the honesty, and that's something we're going to talk about, that word honesty. But I love the honesty in saying those experiences that you had in the beginning, because it's really not a fairy tale world. And I think people also have to understand New York City has been synonymous, especially in the salsa scene, for years, for decades. Just seeing the history that it has, but also the brutal honesty that people give at events and socials. It's not a fairy tale. It's not like everyone's gonna dance and So I definitely love that. So man, I would say had to be around 08, 09. I remember seeing you in Mambo Bravo. And then I remember around that time, 07, 08, I was in a group called East Side Edition with Fernando Avila and George Velasquez. And I remember then meeting you. And I remember the first place I met you was at Club Cache.
Yes.
Remember? And we're talking about 46th Street, going down the steps, that real Dungeness, like.
Which between us,
Yes.
that was the best Club Cache.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And in my opinion, and for people who don't know, unfortunately, hopefully they don't get mad. I was underage going there. But I mean, it was funny because we had an agreement. I would go and literally leave. They told me I could literally not move from the DJ booth area. I had to stay there. Don't go anywhere near that bar unless you have a bathroom break. But for me, I would say with Club Cache, that was really one of the institutions of a lot of the New York dancers. But I think what people have to understand, you taking classes at Mambo Bravo was a help. But I think going into social settings helped you grow more as a dancer. Because
without a doubt.
Yeah, you had to, and people have to understand, this wasn't you were lucky if you got really good AC. So everybody was just like hardcore dancing, socializing for hours and hours. I remember meeting you alongside with Gene Franco and gentleman Alexis when you were doing Los Divos. And
that is
one
correct.
thing, and I'm definitely thankful that I have you here because I've always wanted to know how that group formed.
Oh boy, you just hit a chord right now, and I was not anticipating that. I don't mean to get emotional, but Abby, she recently passed away. And I remember that I went to her social once, and she had like a big party coming up. And she said, it would be so wonderful if we can get a guys team. We want men to perform. You know how Abby was.
Yeah. Yes.
And, I felt inspired by that because here is this lady who at the time I barely knew. She was always so welcoming and warm and welcoming and so much positivity. And that ultimately ended up with my confidence as a dancer. And, I went back to Mambo Bravo and I talked to Jim Franco. And I said, would you want to start a team so that we can perform for Abby, even if it's a one-time thing? And he jumped on board with that. And then once the two of us sort of formed out, we reached out to other gentlemen. So at the time, Los Divos actually was started with 5 guys. And through rehearsal, unfortunately, some couldn't keep up, and then they ended up dropping out. But the bottom line is that Los Divos started out because of Abby, which may she rest in peace. And I'm sorry, I got emotional.
No. It's okay. I mean, yesterday they had a memorial thing on Zoom, and I was able to kind of tell the story, and it hit me because hearing what you just said and realizing we were both inspired by the same woman around the same time. Because I still remember I was with the Heartbreak Boys, which was a group back in the days, and I remember I told her, "Hey, I'm no longer a part of that. I just need someone to give me one chance." Because we also realized back in those days there was only certain teams that were going to perform. You had to have a name already. You had
Yeah.
to have pull. You had to have leverage. And her, I mean, and Abby having the Mambo Mama social. I remember 77th on the 6th line. I still remember it in that church area, going down the
Yeah.
stairs.
Yes.
Yes. And when you enter those doors, it just felt calming. It felt like a safe space where you can go, just socialize. Even if you don't want to, if you don't want to ever think about performing, you can just be a social dancer and mingle with everyone. And realizing that Abby Plotkin was so influential to both of us, I give it up to that woman because realizing she broke so many boundaries, but she helped so many careers start. Because
Absolutely.
realizing when you don't have those people, it's really hard to get in this industry. And again, a big shout out to Abby, and we all miss her. And yeah, and also that was one of the socials I remember seeing you guys at. And to be honest with you, even me being in another guy group, I admired you guys because you guys had so much fun dancing. You came up with in like creative routines that I appreciated because realizing back in those days, if you had groups, all guy groups, there was supposed to be some type of issue. I remember us meeting and just like talking and just like understanding one another. Like, hey, I love what you're doing, and I still remember when you had the long hair.
That's
I
why I say
remember,
we shouldn't talk about that.
hey, I'm victim of that too. So I mean, man. So a question I definitely have now is, what were those experiences like? Of like you said, you started in Mambo Bravo, you got the idea to form Los Divos. What was that experience now of kind of being your own entity, performing in this type of world and industry without kind of being under a school in a sense?
Well, again, I'm glad that you brought this up because, as you know, a lot of dance schools or companies here in New York, they're sort of very protective with their
Hmm.
brand, and they don't want people to do anything unless they started it. And right from the get go, we had the full support of Ruby and the entire staff of Mambo Bravo. And again, we had Abby, who was looking forward to that. And so to us, I can't say that it felt liberating having my own team because I already felt free to begin with, and I can only attribute that to Ruby being the way she is. And but at the same time, it was also good to just sort of have my own voice as far as this is how I want to choreograph this piece, or this is the theme that I want to add to it. Because to make it in New York, where it's so saturated with dancers and talented dancers at that,
Hmm.
I felt that we had to come into the scene with a different approach, and our approach was a different theme for every choreography.
Yeah, I mean, because also we realize in New York, with the saturation of so many groups, performances, teams, companies, you name it. I mean, sometimes routines can look the same. It can look, and it's in true honesty. I've been to many events, especially in New York, whether it's Cache, whether it's Mambo Fatigues, if we're going all the way back like that, if we're going to even what we'll talk about, Salsa Mania and onward, and Jimmy Anton's when they have certain performances, that, hey, it's really important to reinvent yourself. You can't really do the same thing you did before because people are always wondering what you're going to give me now. What are you
Right.
going to show me that's going to separate you from just another performance? And
Exactly.
I think me and you had the great pleasure of being New Yorkers and kind of having that tough skin, kind of like, hey, you may not have always a great show, but if you keep going and keep working at it, I mean, good things are going to happen.
Exactly. Because practice makes perfect, right?
Yes. And I definitely understand that. So, I mean, And I'm loving also all the comments coming in. Someone here, Mr. Elvis Rodriguez, he says, I remember having both Los Divos and East Side Edition when you guys are coming up at the studio. I taught back in '08. We're going
Yep.
way, way back, man. And for me, it's like, it's really memory lane as well here. Mr. Martin Rivera Podero here, Badera, sorry, saying, I absolutely love that we had great representation tonight. Thank you, Diamond, for having Franklin, who's been a beacon of light. He's been an absolute inspiring presence as a person, as an openly gay dancer. I share in the same journey, the sense that holding on to our dignity and strength in a dance world where toxic masculinity plays a frustrating role is righteously, responsibly needed. And
Wow.
that
Man, you guys are not helping today. But that was beautiful. So thank you for that.
absolutely. I mean, because I'm glad we have these moments because you get to see how much you've meant to so many people. Because going through the years, you go to certain events, you're going through day by day, and sometimes you don't have that moment to just like decompress and really soak everything in. Especially we have Mr. Mike Movimiento Garcia, the representation with the hands up, and seriously, I mean, especially in New York City, realizing how many artists we have, it's people like yourself that I'm going to say that have been the symbols of reinvention and being able to rebrand yourself and still keep pushing. And because we realize too, and we've talked about it over the years, we've seen so many teams or so many people and individuals come and go. And it's very few that can be consistent, that can be relevant. And that's important because if you want to make a positive impact in your community, you always need to be there in some capacity.
Absolutely.
So now my question really is, okay, we're going after Devos, and I remember seeing you. Then it was you, Alex, Gene Franco, Ramon, Chomio. Correct me if I'm mistaken. Anyone else? And I remember you guys, and we had this discussion about the formation of the Salsa Mania company, the collective, as I call it, and how that for me was a game changer because you guys really came out the gate and really changed the dynamic of how to portray events. Because we know we've been to events back in the days, and somebody was lucky to have a camera. They'll take a few photos, post it. Probably most of the time, raw images, non-edited, no lighting. Um, so my question really is, I'm saying is, how did that uh, Salsa Mania collective kind of form, and you kind of figuring out your role within that?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna try to say it as compact as
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely.
Um, at at the time that Los Divos had already sort of taken off in New York City, we were already working alongside with Alex El Maestro, who was a DJ. And I remember, I think, meeting him the first time when he was DJing at Mambo Fatigues, if you remember.
Hmm.
And then from there, he caught up with the fact that I was doing photography. And then he told me he was going to start a new social where he wanted me to be the official photographer. And, we had a little conversation face to face. Everything was agreed upon. And before we know it, the social had already taken off. But more than that, what I want to say is that this whole thing came up because of Alex. It was his idea, and then he decided to bring people on board that he thought that would make a good fit for that team. And not only was he smart enough with who he got to be a part of it, but also what task, and to also give them the freedom to perform
Mm.
those tasks.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the word that comes around is the creative control,
Right.
and I think that's really important, especially with artists, whether it be photographers, videographers, what have it, is that when you're able to give them that creative control without limitations, in a sense, I think that's where you can find a lot of your best work. And I would say definitely game changing because it was really New York's, in my opinion, maybe people can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the first, I was, because remember, this started around 2010.
Right.
So this is kind of the next decade in, and I think you guys were kind of the pushing the culture forward, meaning of when we had the socials of the last decade. Now coming in, now the professionalism is increasing with technology increasing, new cameras are coming about, lights and what have you. And I think really Alex definitely was so important and helping bring something fresh to our dance community because,
Absolutely.
even with the photos, you need the space, you need the ambiance, you need the music. Everything really intertwines. And having the discussions with Chomio and the discussion with Ramon, realizing how much you influenced them, whether you knew it or not, was so special because their honesty in being able to say that. And I love too, Ramon was him saying, he was really kind of your apprentice. But in the back of his mind, he always wanted to say, hey, I like what Franklin's doing, but I want to do it a little bit different. I want that shot. I want to capture a shot he didn't. And it was that friendly, competitive nature that I appreciated. And one thing I can say is when you were at these events, and I've talked to people throughout the years, and we've talked as well and I said I've had many conversations with people that would say when Salsa Mania was coming, hey, I want to go to Salsa Mania. I want to go have a good time, but I'm hoping I can get a photo by Franklin. And I remember those moments, and I was like, hearing conversations and hearing what people know in dance sport. Go come inside. If you know the people, you go to the back room, socialize with people. And these were the conversations that I was hearing because now people had an added incentive going to this social because it was, hey, you want to look good? If you look good and you feel good and you dance good, maybe you can get a photo here. And I think, I don't know, did you ever kind of have that feeling that now you were becoming even more noticed in the dance community as a photographer?
I Yes, and to be honest, yes.
Hmm.
And I think it's a whole thing that a lot of people don't understand. I would like to say that I was in the beginning of my journey as a photographer. I was influenced by somebody who you and I both know, who's no longer in the scene, and his name is Amir. I
Mm.
believe I believe he now works for Facebook, and he used to be the one photographing. What was it, the website? Was it Mambo NYC, something like that?
This is Mambo. Was it the calendar or was it? No, I know it's about I think it was Mambo NYC. I
It
believe it
was
was.
something. It was something like that, and he was the photographer. And I remember I was influenced by his off-camera lighting techniques,
Hmm.
and that made me look into it even more. And so, to bring it back to what you were saying, yes, the thing is that Sasamania, Alex was receptive to ideas. So I remember bringing up to him, we need different lighting so that the ambience is what you want it to be, and
Hmm.
that I can capture that ambience so that people can see what it is like to be in here. Um, I don't know if you noticed at one point people were using our photos for other events without asking for permission. And then this is
Ooh.
where I told him, this is, you should come up with a banner that goes behind the performer so that way the photos are permanently labeled.
Hmm.
um, so a lot of my successes as a photographer also came because he was willing to listen. And
And
working with everybody else, I never felt that I was threatened by anybody else because I'm not really a competitive person by nature.
mhm.
So this is why I loved working with Chomio, who's an amazing person and photographer, and also with Ramon, another amazing person and photographer. And to add to everything, we were all working in different capacities because sometimes Ramon was the instructor of the night, or I was the instructor of the
Mhm.
night, and Chomio was taking over the photography while
Yeah.
I was teaching. So it was a great community to be a part of.
Absolutely, because like you said, not just being the photographer, then you being the instructor and kind of have and handing those reins to someone like Shomio that was learning. I mean, because he also told me he came from a different side of photography. It was different than dance photography, and I think a perfect thing I can say is you all were able, especially with the photography, you especially was able to bring that performance type of style into a social setting because
Absolutely.
people expect really nice edited shots, great angles, performance wise. But taking that and bringing it into a social that you don't have that much space to move around. I think
Or
people,
opportunity.
yeah, when you're in a social, you're studying so many people over time. You see the same people, you know their tendencies, you know what they do. And I think that really helps you being a student of the game. And now really it's like a playbook. You're these dancers really, and I tell them the same thing when I'm filming. I'm studying you every time I see you. I don't have to tell you, but I'm watching you so I know who to photograph you with, who to film you with, because I think also that plays a role. And one thing I loved with your photography, especially for me, the simplicity was the lighting, knowing where to capture those shots. Because again, it's not easy of having a camera. I don't think people can understand of they can't take your camera and take the shots you take. I believe only you can do that. It's always
Ex-
different. People might try to mimic or copy it, but there really is only one of that individual.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And so now, throughout the years, of course, you've been with Salsa Mania as a photographer, but people know you as an instructor. Now, really want to kind of dive into understanding how then you really became the mentor in terms of now you were going into the competitive field. How did that really come about?
Well, that credit goes to Anya Kasevman,
Mm,
who for a long time now has been my coach in the dance field. Also a really good friend of mine, and not surprisingly, well, a lot of people don't know, but Anya was one of the biggest catalysts to the success of my photography.
mm,
And and this lady, not only did she teach me more technical elements of dancing, she also taught me how to teach in a more concise manner. um, she basically grabbed me under her wing and she said, do this and you will be successful. And I did that and I was successful.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I can't really count how many times I've heard your name winning medals after medals. And what I mean really is it's different. You just always doing a solo project or working with another professional, but you now taking that role as a mentor, helping create the new generation of follows of when you're doing pro-am competitions and you're help building a dancer. I think that goes to a whole different respect because it can, and most people would just say, hey, I want to focus on my professional level and that's it. But now helping others, I think that was a huge contribution. First of all, you being a photographer and capturing moments that many of us probably wouldn't be able to capture, being an instructor, helping the new generation of dancers in that respect, but also now going into competitive field and giving a lot of these dancers you're working with a boost of confidence and feeling good about themselves. The amount of people I've seen in a 1 to 3 year span of working with you and just almost seeing a completely brand new dancer than when I saw at the social, I'm like, wow, Franklin really has something. It's like, it's not easy. I can definitely say, like, what are some words you can kind of give people to understand the life of the competitive world of dancing?
Well, I think when it comes to me specifically, and tying back to both having the fact that you were military and I was also in the military, you know that whenever you have to do something, you just have to do it.
Absolutely.
There's no way around it. You just have to do it. So having said that, the fact that I had to go to Japan and teach these people who were at a huge disadvantage because not only was their main instructor a good 10,000 kilometers away, we were only able to rehearse for 1-2 weeks max before I left the country to return again months later.
Mm,
So I had to come up with the idea of learn the choreography first. Do not do anything at this point. Come back the next time around. Let's start cleaning up. Come back a third time. Let's polish it, and then that same time frame we would perform it before they come to the competition. So it's not easy because you're dealing with students who've never danced before, students who are not used to the music you're used to. They're not used to the fact that you're only there for a couple of days or weeks. On top of that, the changes in time and jet lag, all of that comes to play, and the fact that my students, along with Mari's students, were successful is again because a lot of things that I learned came directly from Anya.
Man, and again, big shout out to Anya Kitsebman. That woman, especially, I remember seeing her at Club Gache doing solos and just like killing it. I mean, she's one of the artists I can say when you saw her at a show, either were if you were before her or after her, you knew you had to give it your all because that woman is just phenomenal. So now it kind of helps me transition into we understand, kind of the life that you have it as a photographer, as a dancer, and I believe with the Salsa Mania Collective, I think it was about around an 8-year run that you had with them. So from that point, did you kind of really just focus full time on photography?
No, I was at the time I was still juggling both competitive dancing and photography, and it wasn't until June of 2019 that I officially launched a legitimate business as a photography company,
Yeah.
which is Franklin Liranzo Photography LLC. And that's when I said I need to start putting more attention into this, because if I had to compare my income, 60% of my income was coming from photography, whereas 40% was coming from dancing, whatever capacity it was. So then I came into the conclusion that this past summit that was in 2020, that was when I officially announced my retirement as a competitive dancer. And since then I've been focusing more on photography.
Gotcha. I mean, and again, kind of the word even retire, people have to understand it's really about what you want and your happiness because I mean, it's don't get me wrong, it's definitely fun, but I think like you said, photography has always been in your life and realizing dance has been a part of your life. And you being able to say, okay, this is the road I want to go in because like you said, logically, your income more is focused into photography. So taking that step back from dancing and or competitive dancing and now really full fledged going into and investing in your brand, pushing it forward. I can definitely say from the visuals you put out, it definitely is educational. I think that's what's really important is that you're not only just doing photography of taking a shot, taking photos, whether it's for editorials, personal work, portfolios, but also educating prospective photographers of you telling them the lenses, the apertures, teaching them about lighting, what works. I mean, even watching the video we saw there, just seeing of you giving the information on what you use with lights and strobes and what have you. Many people keep that guarded. For me, I take it as so much valuable information because it helps. It's again, as I say, it's not just about buying a camera. There goes so much into it. And even you telling me that it's an investment, it's going to cost money. It costs money to make money, you know.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and I think too, I can say you've been really one of the symbols of photography within our dance world because even as you taking a step back from the competitive world, still giving back to your community, I think like I can't count how many times I've seen your photos from people from DC, from Miami, from across the world. And I got to give a big shout out. I love it what you're doing, but I'm really annoyed at Instagram. They need the New Yorker I appreciate I appreciated that work because I understood the meaning behind it. Um, I mean, just the work you've done, boudoir shoots. I mean, you're so versatile because I think too what happens is some photographers limit themselves to what just works for them at that moment and just stay content. But you being able to go from dance photography now with portraits and what have you, but also now educating people, I think that's really special.
Touching on that, despite having 2 degrees in photography, I can honestly tell anybody who's watching that I learned the vast majority of the technicalities of being a photographer through YouTube. Okay. It wasn't necessarily through school. In school, they reinforced what I already learned. In school, they also focused a lot on theory, on art, and understanding different arts and how it might affect your own productions. In the master's degree program, they were teaching us the business side of photography, which a lot of programs in New York City or in the country, for that matter, don't cover that.
Mm.
So, but anything from lighting, understanding composition, color management, all of that I learned through YouTube. So it would be very ironic for me to withhold information that I already learned. So what I can do is to put out and that's it. Like I don't have to give something in hopes to get something back. It's just I got something from YouTube and I can give something on YouTube.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now that helps me transition to kind of the present day. And really, I would love to understand now, with a new year, what are really your focuses in photography now? Do you feel like you have a new passion to do something with it? Is there kind of a certain role you want to take? Is there now a change in how you want to do things?
No. I personally, I'm one of those people who believe there's no job that's beneath anybody.
Hmm.
Um, as long as people are willing to pay for the services and experience and years and everything that I have to bring, no job is too little for me.
Hmm.
But obviously, there's some jobs that pay more. So it's just weird how things work. This whole pandemic, even though it took a lot of people out of work, which is completely, unfortunate. For me, it actually ended up generating a lot of work.
Mm.
And I don't really like posting everything. I do post some stuff, but I don't really post everything as much as people think that I post everything. But for a long time now, I've been working with Natalie Maniscalco. You know who she
Yes,
is.
from Goya.
Yes, and through her and with her, we've been producing a lot of videos for Goya.
Mm.
We're talking a lot of videos, interviews, behind the scenes, food donations, and whatnot. I've also been working a lot with a lot of like large groups, whether they might be dance teams or not. A lot of corporate headshots. Obviously, I still work with a lot of dancers for
Hmm.
their portraits, for whatever it is that they need. So ultimately, my goal is just to dedicate more time to my photography. But a lot of people misunderstood when I said that I retire as a competitor. Yes, I retire as a competitor when it
Hmm.
comes to dancing, but I'm still going to be dancing. I'm going to congresses. I'm going to teach workshops, and I can still coach future competitors.
Mm. I love it. I love it. And just
Yeah, man.
realizing that even with everything going on, you're still able to be successful because, like you said, this pandemic has hurt a lot of businesses, but you being consistent, being relevant, finding those connections with Goya and etc., you're still producing amazing work. And I think you have been one of those pillars of our community, just like Abby was. And I mean
Right.
that because your consistency, your relevancy, and the fact that you care. Because it's very easy for someone in your stage of with photography, you can be there for the community, but once you find that opportunity, it's I'm gone. But you still coming back, giving back to these artists. And when I can see in that photo the genuineness in the subject, that means so much because as they say, a picture can speak 1,000 words. I believe that's the quote.
Yeah, can say more
Um,
than 1,000 words. Yeah.
yeah, And I think with your photography, no matter what field it's in, the atmosphere, you just know what you're doing. I mean, just seeing too, you don't need a huge production crew to create the work you do.
No.
You know.
In fact, sometimes my mother helps me do some of these photo shoots. God bless her heart. My husband, who actually now plays a very strong role into my photography, he does a lot of the hair and makeup for the past year and a half, and now they're calling us the dynamic duo,
Absolutely.
which is an amazing thing to not only have a beautiful relationship with my husband, who's sitting right here next to me, but
Rosario.
Rosario. But also to work with him, and he's a really strong creative person. So it's funny because sometimes during photo shoots, we have those little
No
bumps because
comments.
he wants to go one way and I want to go the other. But in the end, we end up producing beautiful work.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't always have, as I say, a yes man. You got to have somebody that's going to give a little tug and pull, because you realize having sometimes a little bit different perspective can really go a long way, because then you see the
Absolutely.
result and you say, wow, that worked. So, I mean, definitely don't stop that. And now it helps.
Yes. And yes, sorry to cut you off. Going back to
No,
what you
no.
said earlier, that some photographers or creatives in general feel that
Mhm.
they should focus on one thing. Well, there's two sides to that. Because yes, on one side, if you focus on one business, then you're going to give it your all for that business,
Yeah.
and you're going to get the most out of it. But we're living in times where the economy is taking a hit. A lot of jobs are being lost. A lot of people, unfortunately, are not able to work. And if my main job was being a photographer and photographing dancers, but somehow now Goya is asking me to produce videos for them, which at the time was not my thing,
Yeah.
it would have been foolish of me to say no, which I almost said no. It was actually my husband who convinced me otherwise to take the gig. It's interesting how the mind works,
Yeah.
because I fell into that belief because somebody told me, "Oh no, you should focus on one thing." But
Mhm.
if you are good in multiple areas, why negate yourself that creative outlet?
Yeah, absolutely. Why limit yourself? Because, like you said, the opportunities that arise, if you don't take it, someone else will. But realizing now everything you've been able to accomplish is something truly, truly just like remarkable. Just seeing really your trajectory over the years, and really it's just an uphill. And I love it because I love seeing people succeed. For me,
Likewise.
especially. Absolutely. I think that's what a lost art form is, just seeing people become successful. I'd rather see my friends and the people I know working to better themselves, because it also helps me better myself. And just understanding your story really from the beginning to the present day is really inspirational. And now it helps me transition to our closing segment that I have called the randoms, which is 10 questions. Some of them a little bit spicy, but also to
Okay.
help us, understand you a lot better and gain a little bit more perspective. So definitely let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready. Shoot
All
my way.
right.
Let's go. Bam, bam, bam.
All right. Number one, favorite food.
Thai food.
Oh, all right. Any specific dish?
I love the papaya salad, which actually I'm gonna eat that after we wrap up.
Perfect. All right. Number two, favorite. Hmm. One song you could have right now, you could dance with someone to.
Arrepiéntete, esa salsa song.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. All
Love
right.
that song.
Okay. I like that. Number three, dream vacation destination.
You cannot ask me that because that's not fair.
Why?
Because I travel a lot and I can't pick one place. But for the sake of answering, I will go with the lost city of Petra.
Okay. All right. If we want to kind of rephrase that, I'll do this. What is one, and I want one of the places you filmed that is really memorable to you? I know there's a
Iceland,
lot.
without a doubt.
I,
Iceland, without a doubt.
I remember. And I'm assuming that was the Northern Lights.
Well, yes, we had the opportunity to photograph that, but Iceland for filmmakers and photographers is just it's just a dreamland. And even though that's not the question, the fact that I went there with Chomio and Ramon, it was just
Oh, no,
the cherry on top.
absolutely. I've seen the
Yeah.
photos, I've seen the visuals. I absolutely love it. All right, next question is going to be, what is a huge don't to dancers when they're at a social and you are the photographer?
Don't I understand some people don't want to be photographed or filmed, but be an adult, approach me. Even if I've taken the photo, I have no issue deleting photos because I would like my wishes to be respected. But do not place your hand on my lens because you
Oh,
don't know how much money I spent on that.
oh,
And your hands are dirty and they have sweat and you can scratch it with whatever you're wearing. So do not put your hands on the photographer's lens and just talk to them after or before.
oh my God. Oh man, you just gave me a little bit heart palpitation with that one.
It happened to me twice, believe it.
And I could just see you kind of like tense up and be
Oh,
like,
I was fuming.
oh yeah.
But we handled it like
Okay.
adults. We handled
Okay.
it.
I love it. I love it. All right. So this next one should be interesting. What's your spirit animal?
You know, I'm gonna have to say it's a bird, a cockatoo.
Okay. I like that. All right. All right. Perfect.
Birds are very, they're very free. They go where the wind takes them. They can take off whenever they want. They're very smart. And if you've seen videos of my baby, she loves dancing and singing.
Oh my
Me.
God. Perfect combination. All right. Next question is, can you tell me 3 of your favorite socials that you've been to?
Wow. Can I include congresses or no?
Absolutely. I'm going to say favorite events that you've been to.
Okay, favorite events for sure. Salsa Mania is one of them. Second, this is my favorite Congress, and please don't be jealous, anybody. It's the Houston Salsa Congress.
Okay.
And third, it was super fun many times over. So I would have to say Aventura Dance Cruise.
Hey, I see, I see. It's funny you actually said that because I believe in the comments here we had Mr. Ernie Wrangle.
Ah,
Yes, from the Scene Media here. Definitely
he's a
showing.
great photographer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, next question. I love how this is going. What would be your superpower?
Wow. However, that transpires it to be is I honestly, even though this sounds so cliche, really world peace.
Mm, okay.
Seriously, like if we can somehow manage that, it will be a whole different reality for all of us.
I love it. I love it. Very introspective. Next question would be, what's a special talent that many people wouldn't know you have?
I don't want to tune my own. I don't want to. Apparently, people think that I can sing,
Okay.
but I have my days, so I'll it's
Are you a
like hit and
shower
miss here and
singer?
there.
Or you always say you're more of a shower singer, or
Oh
just
no, I
oh,
sing. I sing around the house. I sing in the car. I sing in the shower. You name it.
oh my god. So I'm assuming you're trying to tell me in the next couple of years expect a single out.
It's funny how you asking me that because I was thinking that today.
Mm.
I'm like, I may not have the pipes to be. You see, Mike is saying it right there. He sings. He's modest. But I may not have the pipes that some people do, but I think I can do some
You can hold the
salsa.
note. You can hold.
I can do some salsa. We'll see.
Oh, all right. I like the way this is going for sure. All right. So last 2 questions. This one I love asking people. Can you give me 3 people that have really been most influential to you at this point in your life?
I got way more than 3 people.
I know.
There is my mother.
And you
There's
can, in
Anya.
family, you can bunch them together. That's fine.
Yeah. There's my mother. There's Anya. There is my husband, Mario from Japan, Lucia Jimenez. I thankfully also with my best friends, Juan and Alejandro, and then Ramon and Chomio. Like the list
I know.
it's not super long, but these people still play a huge role in my life as it is now.
Awesome. I love it. And now it brings me to my last question. And I love asking this one. If you're on an island, disclaimer, there is no Wi-Fi. What are three things that you would have to have with you?
I would say my phone, because with that, even if I don't have Wi-Fi, I still have a camera and I can still capture images. I know it would die eventually, but
Yeah.
still, people will know how it went down.
Yeah.
I can still listen to music. I would definitely have my husband, and I would definitely have my baby Uki.
Perfect. I love it. I absolutely love it. And Franklin, I want to thank you so much for doing this
Thank you.
segment. I definitely feel like I learned a lot more about you as well as the audience has. And now it helps me into now the conclusion of our discussion. And really, I wanted to let you know from start to finish, I appreciated everything you said, from your honesty, from your transparency, from your experiences, and seeing how that has molded you, but also how you've been so inspiring to so many other artists and creatives, and realizing it's not just about what you do for yourself, but also what you're doing for others and continuing to do. And I definitely think tonight was an amazing moment, amazing one-on-one. I'm thankful that we have this opportunity. I definitely hope for the future we can have this again. For me too, I always ask my guests, if you do, of course, have any last few words for myself and the audience, but also any contact information on how people can reach you.
The first thing is, no matter what you do for life to make money, to stay relevant, you need to sometimes deviate from what it is that you like to do or what you want to do.
Mm.
That's one. Two, again, for the people in the same industry, if you're an artist, give your talent, share with the community, because one way or another is going to come back to you in a positive way. And three, you can always find me on Facebook with my name. You can find me on Instagram at Franklin_Liranzo. And then there's also my website, franklinliranzo.com. And it is still out there. There's also thenewyorker.com. So that will be another episode, though, the New Yorker.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, I love it because, especially with these discussions, I always tell people, I feel like it's always a part one to many more parts, because I don't feel like we can get everything in one. And I purposely love doing more parts because we get to really unravel your experiences and understanding you more. I definitely would love to have you on for a future episode. Especially, I would love to, and I brought this up to Ramon, I would love to have a pan. Oh, yes. We're going to have you and your bird next time. Front
She's
row.
right here.
Hey, I love
But no,
it.
seriously, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I know it takes a lot of work. I know video takes a lot of work. You have to deal with lighting, with sound. You have to deal with schedule and people being on different time zones. And, if something goes wrong, you have to go into editing. And not only that, you're allowing people to sort of take a look at their own selves, because that's something we don't do often. And on top of that, you're preserving this for whatever it's worth. You're preserving it. And for that, I thank you so much.
Absolutely. I think, again, for me, I do this because I want people to understand the artists that I feel mean so much to me, but also mean so much to other people. And this is really documentation for the future, because long after we're gone, we have this to fall back on, and people can understand us in our natural, genuine setting without a performance lights around us. So,
What are you talking about? I got my performance slide on right now.
but Franklin, I definitely can't wait till our next interview. I'm actually trying to plan a panel with you, Ramon, and Chomio. Definitely,
Let's do it.
yes. I'm planning that. I want that to happen. But Franklin, I want to thank you again so much for a wonderful night. Again, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. I'm your man, Diamond. We just have here Franklin Liranzo, and what
Cookie.
is her name? Cookie. We have Cookie here. And definitely can't wait for our next interview. And everyone, be safe.
Yes, please. Be safe.
Absolutely, everyone. Have a great night, and wear a mask.
Yes, and wash your hands.